Binge the full week of The Ray Taylor Show ad-free over at inspireddisorder.com/plus.
This is The Ray Taylor Show.
Howdy, friends, and welcome to the Ted Lasso Recap Podcast. I am your host, Ray Taylor, and I'm thrilled to be here with y'all today. Now, folks, if you're like me, you can't get enough of Richmond and Ted and everybody else at AFC Richmond, but that's why I'm here. I dive deep into every episode of this wonderful show and share my thoughts and insights with all y'all lovely folks out there. We're going to laugh, we're going to cry, but we're going to have a heck of a good time doing it. So grab your biscuits, settle in, and let's get started, shall we? With this episode that aired May 24th, 2023, Season 3, Episode 11 of Ted Lasso, Mom City. This show has had evil Nate. This show has had evil Danny. But in this episode, we see emo Jamie. As the team heads to play Jamie's old team at Manchester, Roy and Keeley team up to get to the bottom of what's bothering him. Nate, however, is at his new job, but not for long, as Jade forces the situation to get Nate back on track. All this while Ted's mom is in town, and Ted isn't very happy about it, as the trauma from their past is still unresolved. We also find out the origin story for Ted and Coach Beard in this episode, and how second chances are a very important thing. And as always, this episode made me laugh and it made me cry. But let's get into this episode, shall we? On Ted's way to work, saying hello to everybody in town, he sees his mom sitting on a bench, and he is very surprised that his mom is there in England. Nate is working now at Jade's restaurant, his favorite restaurant. He is now working there. Isaac, Colin, and Will show up to the restaurant to talk to Nate, and they show up. They want Nate back. They talk to everybody, and they are all okay with Nate coming back. So what I thought would happen is that Nate would, at the end of last episode, he set up the locker room for Will and gave Will an apology note with a piece of lavender taped to it. And I thought that was going to be the beginning of Nate kind of smoothing things over and apologizing to people. But since that happened, it seems like the team is already doing that side of the work. They are reaching out to Nate, asking if he wants to come back. And the whole team talked about it and agreed. They also don't believe that Jade is Nate's girlfriend, as she disappears when Nate goes to point her out. But since Ted doesn't know, they didn't ask Ted. Everybody else, none of the coaching staff, I think, knows. Just the players. But since Ted doesn't know, Nate turns down the opportunity to go back. But since they're there, Isaac decides to order 75 kebabs. But the whole conversation, Jade did overhear the whole thing. And it seems like she's going to set him straight. My thought was that she would be a pivotal reason for him going back to Richmond. So we'll see what she does in this episode. Cut to text Beard. Ted is texting Beard to tell him he's going to be late. Obviously, he's with his mom. She's been staying at a hostel for a week, talking about the people that are staying at the hostel. Ted invites her to stay, actually ends up demanding her to stay at his place for the rest of her trip. Then invites him to go to work. Invites her to go to work with him, and insists, obviously, for her to go to work to him. See where he works, meet all the people. And as she leaves, Ted does a little prayer as she's walking out the door. So Ted's not necessarily happy to see his mom, but she is going to be with him at work. You have Roy, Sam, and Jamie at a press conference. Jamie is asked how it feels to be named the premier player of the month. And Jamie is emo. This is where we're noticing Jamie is a little emo, a little depressed. The way he answers that question, says he's not doing enough to make the team look good, right? It's not the team's job to make him look good. It's his job to make the team look good. Roy adds that he led the league in assists as well. And then Sam, who is also there, adds that he actually did score 1 goal, so he's actually contributing. But then Jamie said it was supposed to be a pass, and he just accidentally scored the goal, and he apologized, and it shouldn't even be counted as a goal because it wasn't intended to be a goal. So Jamie very down on himself, down on the way he's playing, even though seemingly everybody's happy with it. But it's clear Jamie is very emotional in this episode. Cut to Ted introducing Rebecca to his mom, his mom pretends to be his new bodyguard, joking around. But she's very stoked to meet Ted's mom, Rebecca is, whose name is Dottie. And she has the same way of speaking, the same turn of phrase that Ted has. And he kind of plays it down. Right, kind of seeing the way his mom speaks, him kind of playing it down. Rebecca offers to give her a tour, and Dottie is stoked. She really is excited to meet Danny Rojas, so Rebecca's gonna give her a tour. Cut to Dottie telling the team stories, cracking them up. They're all laughing, telling them stories about Ted as a kid being arrested. You have Rebecca and Ted watching from inside Ted's office. And she finds out Ted isn't stoked about his mom being in town. And she reminds Ted that that's what moms do. As we all know, the relationship that Rebecca has with her own mom. And we find out the story that Dottie is telling the team is about Ted driving on the wrong side of the road, so he was destined to be in England, and they all love it. They all love the story. Meanwhile, Ted is clarifying the reality of the story, correcting the facts of the story, that he was not 15, that he wasn't 12, he was 15, and that they were arrested because his friend was throwing gang signs to the cop car, not because he was driving on the wrong side of the road. So Rebecca reminds him that the facts can ruin a good story, and just focus on giving his mom one good memory while she's in town before she goes home. That's his only job, right? Don't worry about everything else. Just give her one good memory. Ted walks into the locker room just as she was about to tell a story of Ted eating shit, thinking it was a candy bar. But Trent introduces himself to Dottie, clearly Trent wanting to get some tidbits out of her for the book that he's writing. Van Damme, as they're getting prepared to go out and practice, Van Damme, since Danny Rojas broke his nose in the previous episode, he's wearing a face shield, a mask over his face. And still a little bit cautious as he looks over at Danny, and Danny gives him a very happy hello. Whereas, we saw evil Danny for a moment, but it was only during the international play. But it seems that Van Damme's still a little emotionally scarred from that. And gives Jamie an opportunity to give him a jab as well, as everybody's making fun of him. And he's like, well, since everybody's making fun of me, Jamie, what do you got for me? And Jamie says that it's more important to be safe than to look cool. So again, Jamie not wanting to get in on the fun and just being his emotional self, really surprised everybody with that answer. Everyone definitely taken back by this new Jamie that is so emo, and Roy also hearing that yells at him to meet him in the boot room, right? The room where all the emotions really come out. So Jamie, very emo in this episode. Dottie thinks Jamie is in trouble, but Trent tells her that that's just Roy's love language. Him shouting is just his love language. So not to be worried. And as Roy is telling Tart that he needs to be next level prick, Jamie starts to cry like a very cartoonish, ugly cry from Jamie. As Roy's telling him, we need you to be next level prick out there, okay? And that only gets Jamie to cry. Roy asks if he's dying or some shit, Tries, but he's tired. Jamie says he's tired, but he can't sleep. He can't eat. Not even using conditioner in his hair is worthwhile, because what's the fucking point? He compares himself to the guy on the Red Bull commercial, Sisyphus, who's pushing the rock up the hill, but lost his wings. And he grabs Roy's face and cries, "Where are my fucking wings, Roy? Where are my wings?" Which is an interesting reference to make, because I don't know if Red Bull is still airing those commercials. Those commercials were on back when I watched TV that had commercials, like, I don't know, 20 years ago. The Red Bull commercials, I don't know if they're still airing those. It would be kind of amazing if they still are. But a reference so old that I got it. I would imagine the majority of references people would make to commercials, I would not get. Although some of the streaming services I have, they're ad supported, and it seems like all ads are just pharmaceutical drugs these days anyway. So, but the Red Bull commercial one, kind of a surprising reference. And also, when he grabbed Roy's face, I was almost expecting him to kiss. It is a very awkward moment. But I guess just seeing Jamie ugly cry in general is an awkward moment. But he's worried about what happened to his wings. And they hug as Roy gives his long, drawn-out fuck. You know? Just realizing that this is going to be an issue. And, of course, that's when Will walks in, but Roy tells him that he missed a good one, that he was actually too late, which is kind of a funny play on the running gag of Will always being in the boot room when somebody's divulging some deep, dark, emotional trauma or something. But he just missed it in this one. And tries to get it out of him or whatever, and it doesn't work. Cut to Higgins tells Ted about Nate waiting tables and that he would probably come back if he was invited. And Ted asks, what he thinks, what Higgins thinks, and Higgins, all for second chances. Then Ted asks Roy, and Roy loves the idea. Nate's great at the shit that I suck at, and tells Ted he needs to do some, it tells Ted that he actually needs to go do something outside of he needs to go deal with Jamie, he needs to leave to go figure out what he's going to do with Jamie, but doesn't care if Nate comes back. Then Ted asks Beard, Beard says he'll burn this place down to the ground if Nate comes back. So Beard is adamantly against Nate coming back. So it's clear that if Nate is going to come back, Beard has got to change his tune, which at this point seems unlikely. But they're interrupted by Trent getting confirmation on the story, on a story, one of Ted's stories specifically. And everybody loves Dottie. Dottie comes in, and everybody kind of circles around her, and Beard is saying, "Lottie Dottie, we like to potty." And of course, Ted, not happy with any of this. As somebody that has issues with their parents, mostly growing up without being around them much. My dad left when I was 5 and never had a relationship with him. And then growing up, I usually spent most of the time at friends' houses. Didn't have a very good relationship with my mom. And it's very weird, the few moments that my friends actually got to see my mom or be around her, she turns into a completely different human being. And it's very annoying because they don't see who she really is behind the scenes when she's not putting on an act. And it feels like that's Ted's vibe with this whole situation, that everybody loves Dottie, but his experience being her son is not as fun and joyful as everybody is clearly enjoying her presence there. So Ted yells that he's got a team to coach. But they're all too busy dancing and singing la-di-da-di. She likes to potty. So Ted not very happy with it. Cut to Roy showing up at Keely's office. Roy needs Keely's help, obviously, with Jamie. She knows him really well. Roy isn't good with the emotional stuff, right? She's good with the emotional stuff, and tells her that she also looks good. Barbara kind of assumed that he was there to fix the pipes, despite there not being any problem with the pipes. But then Roy extends the compliment of looking good to Barbara as well, which she's like, oh, thank you, I actually got this. Right, so she was in some ways fishing for compliments in ways, but kind of an awkward situation, as Barbara can make a situation. Cut to Ted took his mom to the pub, where Beard is there as well. Beard and Ted are kind of trading off, playing pinball. May comes over to give them some beer, and she gives Ted advice about parenting, parents fucking up their kids. And she talks about families passing down trauma from generation to generation, but in a more poetic way with her British accent, obviously. Cut to the fans who are now over at their table, also listening to Dottie's stories, loving the stories. Everyone loves her, and I'm sure that just makes Ted even more upset as he kind of is pretending to play pinball, just to have moments away so he doesn't have to be there around this person. Cut back to Ted's place, where he insists on her taking the bed, and she's being difficult about the whole thing, but eventually she relents and takes the bed. She brought him news clippings from back home of, their coverage of him out in the UK, and Ted asks if she wants to go to the game the next day, but she decides to stay at his place instead. She needs sleep from all the people in the hostel having sex. She hasn't gotten good sleep. And kind of, she says she gets too nervous watching his games, making an excuse. But she says she'll have a hot meal waiting for him when he gets home. And she asks if he's still having panic attacks. And he tells her he's been talking to a therapist and it's actually been helping him. So he hasn't really had to deal with those that much. And then he asks if she would ever want to talk to a therapist. And she is not into it. But she does love tea, which makes sense why Ted hates tea so much. Kind of an irrational level of hatred towards tea that Ted has. Cut to the next day, game day. Rebecca and Higgins are joining the team on the bus, mostly because she's been getting too much shit from her goddaughter about using her private jet and how that's bad for the environment. You have the team outside signing autographs for the fans, taking pictures, and we see Jamie, who takes the phone from one of the fans to instead not take a picture with him and them together, but just of them by themselves. Jamie doesn't even feel like he's worthy to be in their pictures. And of course, Roy and Keely are seeing all this happen as he also passes up a high five to a fan and just kind of lets the fan slap him in the forehead. But Keely says that she'll talk to him. And I noticed that Roy is no longer wearing the tie-dye shirt. So I guess it was just for the episode. It wasn't a big change for the character. So kind of disappointing not to see Roy continue wearing the tie-dye shirts. Cut to Nate serving a table at the restaurant. The manager comes over and asks the customers who they think this guy is. Who do you think this guy was? So embarrassing, right? Nate looks over at Jade, like, help me, what is this going on here? The manager lays out Nate's path from this guy was a kit man, then he became an assistant coach, then he became the manager, then he became the manager of a team at the top of the league, and now look at him, he's waiting tables. The customer is very sorry, like that is a depressing, like the manager is saying it like some kind of victory, obviously for him, But the customers are sad and assume, was it drugs? Was it drugs that made you fall from grace? And, you know, they're like, I get it if it's drugs. Drugs are great. We've done drugs. But is that what it was? And of course, he says no. He just says, I like working here, you know, and tries to, like, I work with my girlfriend, and then again goes to point out Jade, and again she is not there. So it is this running gag of him trying to point out that his girlfriend works with him, but she's never there. Cut to Manchester. The team shows up to the hotel. Keeley shows up at Jamie's room, and he knows Roy told her and tries to tell her that he's, you know, he's better than he's ever been. Although until he opens up his suitcase and starts to point out how there's something really sad about a suitcase. It's like a drawer without a home, and then he starts to break down, you know, showing how not good he's doing. And his first time he's playing back at Manchester since he left, which was the team that he went to in the first season. Then he went on the reality TV show, was an embarrassment, and got kicked off the team. So it's his first time back since then. The crowd is going to hate him, and his dad is going to be in the crowd booing the loudest. And the online hate isn't something that he thought of, you know, when all this stuff. She mentions if they win, then it will put him in the place to make all of his dreams come true. And then, you know, nothing like pointing out all the negatives and then also putting the pressure of like, oh, all of your dreams are hinging on you doing good. But Jamie, so overwhelmed, ends up passing out. Cut to the team in like one of the banquet rooms or whatever, watching a movie on a projector. Keeley shows up to let Roy know that she only made the situation with Jamie worse. She didn't really help the situation at all. Danny looks over and notices them together, but they both make a point to say that they're not back together, that they're only friends, and I boo that. And I'm not happy with that. I hope that after they were clearly had cooked up again in the last episode, that they were back together, but apparently it's not official. Apparently they're just still friends. They just had that thing. The rest of the team shushes them for talking during the movie. Everybody's crying watching this rom-com with Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan. It's not Sleepless in Seattle. It's one of the other ones. You've Got Mail, probably. I'm not familiar with the many rom-coms that those two have been in, but it's one of those. Sam looks over at Rebecca during one of the more poignant movies when Meg Ryan's character says, I wanted to be with you so badly, and he looks over at Rebecca. Rebecca looks over at him, and they share. She has like this very big happy smile on her face, you know, when they catch eyes. And even Roy is crying while gritting his teeth, right? Trying so hard not to cry, but it's getting to him. Let's take a quick break from this episode to talk about Attention all Ray Taylor Show fans! We're excited to announce we've just released a line of exclusive merchandise featuring original artwork inspired by the show. Our high-quality shirts and biodegradable phone cases are a perfect way to show your support for the show and make a great gift for any fan. Plus, with each purchase, you'll be helping us continue to bring you great content. So don't wait. Head on over to inspireddisorder.com now and check out the full collection. Thanks for listening, and we hope you'll show your support by grabbing some Ray Taylor Show merchandise today. And now, let's get back to the show. Roy and Keeley chase after Jamie. Jamie leaves, the first one to leave after the movie's over. Roy and Keeley chase after him, following him out the hotel. And they're following him through all the streets, and they lose him going through a tunnel. But it turns out Jamie knew that they were following and surprises them, scares the shit out of them as they get out of the tunnel. And he knew they were following him. And Keeley asks if he's going out to buy drugs. They walk by some kids who are playing football against the wall, and all the kids start talking shit to Jamie, which kind of puts a smile on his face. And as they walk past, as they leave these kids, Roy kind of hangs back and then, like, gives the kids, like, a good job talking shit, right? He respects the shit talk, and they're super stoked that Roy can't just, like, at first they're scared, obviously, because Roy turned around and he's quiet. But then he, gives them a compliment, and they're like, oh, that's epic. Turns out Jamie was going to his mom's house. His stepdad answers. He's a super sweet guy. His mom comes down. His mom looks like she's the same age as him. Their relationship, very weird, but definitely very young-looking mom. Cut to Roy being blown away watching Jamie being babied by his young-looking mom. The stepdad gives Roy and Keely a tour. Cut to Nate back at home with Jade. He's talking about work, just like all these ideas he has, and she's like, she barely thinks about work when she's even at work, so it's like, please just don't do this. She tells him that he shouldn't work there anymore. This is not the place for you, Nate. You're supposed to be doing something more. She tells him that he should go back to Richmond, right? He's the coach. You're a coach now. You coach there. You should go back to Richmond. Obviously, she also knew the teammates that came over to invite him back. And she wants him to go back. And he says after the season, he'll contact other teams to see if they need a coach. But he can't go back to Richmond, right? He just can't, like, he doesn't feel like that Ted would want him back, or that maybe Coach Beard would want him back. She pours some wine and asks for some nuts, and Nate starts to go on about how the great business strategy it is to offer people at the restaurant free nuts because it makes them thirsty. And what a great business strategy it is. You spend a little bit money giving people free nuts, and they end up spending exponentially more buying the drinks to satiate the thirstiness. And Jade couldn't care less. She's like, you are wasting your brain on this job. This is not what you should be doing. Cut to Jamie's mom, knows something's wrong. He tells her he can't get his soul hard. It's like his soul is impotent. And now that he can't let go of his hate for his dad. And it used to fuel his success, how he doesn't care about, but now he doesn't care about him, right? Before, hating his dad was like the fuel for him to prove him wrong. But now that he doesn't care, right? He's gotten past that. He doesn't have that fuel anymore. Cut to the stepdad showing Jamie's room to Roy and Keely. And it's still decorated like a small child lives there, which is crazy. I know parents probably do that, but I can't. I'm pretty sure my room was changed immediately after I left. But different strokes for different folks, I guess. So it's still decorated as if Jamie was still a child, and he has an old poster of Roy with like long hair on his wall. And the stepdad's like, there's been so many players over the years that Jamie's had on the wall, but that Roy Kent poster has been the one that always stayed. Right? So Jamie has always looked up to Roy Kent. And as the stepdad leaves to kind of give them just a moment to themselves and closes the door, behind the door we see a poster of Keely holding 2 soccer balls in front of her tits. And so it's clear that Jamie kind of grew up idolizing Roy and Keely for different reasons, and in many ways achieved his dreams of dating Keely for however long they went out, and to be now friends, to be best friends with Roy, as I think we've kind of established in the last episode, that they're best friends with each other. but makes Keely respond in a very Roy-esque way with the fucking hell, which is funny how in this season Roy has adopted a lot of the catchphrases and puns of Ted and Coach Beard, but also the other people have kind of adopted Roy's kind of reactions to things, because it's kind of fun to see how they've all kind of cross-pollinated the way their characters act, which I find to be funny. It's funny to see Roy throw out puns, and it's funny to see everybody else kind of have that slow, drawn-out fuck as Roy is so good at doing. Cut to Jamie's mom telling Jamie that his dad is who he is, and he's never going to change. And Jamie is who he is, and he's always going to prove him wrong. And she reminds him that he's amazing. It's clear that Jamie has good people on his side. She tells him that she cried when she saw him play for England for the national team in the last episode. And tells him his dad will be in the stands and rooting against him, but it won't matter because he doesn't have anything to prove anymore, right? You've proven everything. Roy mentions how weird it is. They're still in Jamie's room. How weird it is sitting on Jamie's childhood bed with Keely. Very weird situation. Both of them being all concerned about Jamie as well, being very much like parental figures for Jamie. Just as Roy tells Keely he doesn't want to just be friends, she's like, wait a minute, you don't want to be friends? He's like, well, I don't want to just be friends. I want to be more than friends. He grabs her hand, and it seems like she's about to tell him no. Jamie walks in to see if they're ready to go. So I feel that's a little bit of misdirection. I think they're going to get back together, even though it seemed like maybe she was going to say no. It seems like this episode, they are kind of acting as if they are the parents to Jamie. They are like concerned parents that their child is going through a rough time, and they're trying to figure out what's wrong with them and trying to figure out how they can fix the situation, right? Despite not actually being able to necessarily fix the situation, but that is where their concern is. They are a team in trying to figure this out, just as they were a team when Phoebe had the bad breath and the Christmas episode, and they went door to door to try and find a dentist to fix this situation, right? Again, it is them acting as a team, acting as like this parental unit, trying to help their child, Jamie Tart. So I think that was a bit of misdirection. I could be wrong, though. Who knows? It just seems like it would make sense. I don't know why they wouldn't get back together. But as they say goodbye, Roy goes to give Jamie's mom a hug, and Keely pulls him away. So maybe that's what kind of made me think that maybe she wants to be more than friends, too. She's like, well, I don't want you hugging his hot mom. Okay, Roy. You say goodbye and let's go. So that's a little sign, I think, that maybe she wasn't going to say no. But also maybe that, like, let's take it slow. Let's see where it goes. Whatever, right? Cut to Ted in his room at the hotel. Cut to the TV going on. And, of course, Keely is on the TV again, as she has been on every TV in every hotel, talking about all the amenities that are available at the hotel, at the town that they're in. She's talking about this new exercise technology yoga mats that they have at the hotel, which is hilarious. He gets a text from his mom asking for the Wi-Fi password, and he asks if she's okay, and she mentions that she kind of wishes she had gone to the game, which doesn't do him any good to hear that. And you kind of get the sound effect that Ted hears when he's about to have a panic attack. That sound effect starts to kind of play. But we don't see... He's been able to control in the past, so maybe it's just... We don't see that go to fruition. We don't see him get a panic attack or stop it or whatever. But we see that kind of triggering him in some ways. But now we cut to the game. You have the fans and the crowd singing Blue Moon. Keeley in the crowd with Rebecca, wishing Richmond and Higgins, wishing they had an old-timey song that their team could sing, like they have Blue Moon. Higgins mentions a time in Richmond's history when Freddie Mercury owned the team, which is a fun trivia question. You know, what famous singer at one point owned AFC Richmond? That would be Freddie Mercury. And what song did Freddie Mercury try to get the fans to sing? It was Fat Bottom Girl, but the flat bottom girls were offended, so they didn't catch on. Rebecca's dad went to art school with Freddie Mercury and said that his greatest talent, what her dad said, her grandpa said, her dad said was Freddie's greatest talent wasn't his singing, his ability to sing, but was his ability to flip straight men, which is kind of a funny. Then they collect themselves and cheer for Richmond, because there's the few people there to cheer for Richmond. Cut to the bar. The fans are there. They're ordering their beers. May says, order your beers now. Order as if you're not going to have another chance to order until halftime. So they all order 12 beers. She gave them the heads up. Jamie going out on the pitch, getting booed by the crowd. And as they play, starting to kind of get roughed up by the opponent. So he's not playing that great. They're putting the pressure on him. Cut to the restaurant where Nate is watching the game while he works. He's drawn into the game. He notices Colin open on one of the plays just before they pass it to Colin, and Colin scores, and Nate celebrates, yes, right? And Jade sees that he's still invested in this team. He's celebrating the victories of this team. And everyone is celebrating except the Man City fans. And Higgins, who won't celebrate until the final whistle blows, is just frozen, not wanting to jinx the whole situation, right? He's choosing to remain frozen so he doesn't jinx the whole thing. Cut to the other team making an adjustment. Then you see Van Dam. Van Dam is the player of the century in this game. He blocks 2 goals right off the bat. Jamie ends up saving another, but ends up kind of getting injured, twisting his ankle or whatever. Right? He tries to keep playing, but then collapses midfield. Ted starts stressing out. Nate sees this, and he's he's invested as well. Ted wants to talk to Jamie before getting a sub to decide where he wants to sub somebody in. Jamie's not sure if he can go back. First he said no, then he said maybe. So they're going to play with 10 people versus 11 people just to see if they need to take Jamie out or not. Van Dam, again, blocks 3 more attempts successfully at goal. Van Dam is the man in this one. Nate glued to the TV. The manager asks to speak to him in the office. Clearly have just having done some blow. He puts his little mirror away in his desk there. And Nate asks if he's getting promoted. But it turns out, of course, he's not getting promoted. He's getting fired. And he finds out that Jade threatened to report the manager for something he doesn't want to mention because that's why it's bad if he gets reported. That she's going to report him if she doesn't fire him. So Nate sees that she's behind this, right? She knows he should go. He knows too. And she's forcing him to do it, right? Which in any other show would cause drama between them. There would be an argument, even though she knows what's best. It's clear as day that he should go back. So, thankfully, we're in Ted Lasso world. So it doesn't turn into some argument, this couple argument. Cut back to the game. Van Dam blocks another attempt. And they're still working on Jamie, the trainers or whatever, still working on getting his foot back to normal, getting it relaxed, whatever. Beard says that they need to make a decision soon. They're running out of time. Roy says that he played hurt all the time, to which Beard reminds Roy that he can't even walk upstairs anymore. Ted says he's going to go check on him one more time. And Jamie keeps looking over his shoulder, looking for his dad. Ted asks what he would say if he could say something to his dad. And at first he says, "Fuck you then." But then he says, "Thank you." And Ted kind of saying forgiving him isn't giving him anything. You're not giving anything to him, forgiving him. It's giving something to yourself, which is it's something that I heard. I don't know if I heard it from this show or not, but I heard that reframed, the idea of forgiveness reframed before, that forgiving like a lot of people don't want to forgive their parents for whatever they did. And you don't forgive somebody to say in any way that what they did is okay. That's not what forgiveness is. Forgiveness allows you to move past that, and for that to no longer be hooked in you, right? Forgiving that person just allows you to take whatever they did in the past, take that person and let them go, and you no longer having to be attached to that situation anymore. And it gives you freedom. And in many ways, that's what Ted is trying to get across to Jamie in this moment. And he needs to find another way to get himself motivated, right? If the anger at his dad isn't going to do it anymore, you need to find some other way to get pumped up. And Jamie says that he can go back in. The crowd starting to boo Jamie as he kind of starts egging it on. He starts asking the crowd, like, come on, Scott, what do you got, right? Using the crowd to pump him up. The crowd's hate to pump him up. So now it's, instead of wanting to prove his dad wrong, now he has the motivation to prove all of the fans there that they are wrong. And it's a very emotional moment, I have to say. The fans at the bar start singing the Jamie Tart song. Van Dam saves another goal. Isaac passes to Jamie down the field, and he scores again. They immediately pull Jamie out. Now they're up 2-0. They immediately pull him out, and he gets the crowd on their side, seeing him go back out and score another goal, and they applaud him. The announcers are like, this is amazing. The hometown crowd never supports the rival team, and here they are supporting Jamie. I'm like emotional. Like, he did it. He won him over. And you see Roy whisper something to Jamie. Don't know what he whispered. Probably like, this is the moment, right? Soak this moment up. This is for you. In the stands, you see two of his dad's friends say that he's a tough kid and that his dad would have been proud. Cut to, I believe, his dad in some kind of nursing home or rehab, maybe, but him looking proud. Very emotional moment. I think that's, I couldn't tell. He looks different, but maybe he got in trouble with the law and he's in a rehab, a court mandated rehab or something like that. Cut to, Van Dam saves another goal at the end of the game. The game is over. Higgins can finally celebrate. The opposing coach has some great words for Ted. It's like, it's our job just to make sure that they're good people on the field and off the field, and the rest is up to them, kind of a thing. Ted kind of gets giddy that he got words of encouragement, and Ted clears the air, and the coach also clears the air with Jamie. They kind of shake hands. Obviously, they had a thing with Jamie going on the reality show, so it's kind of closure with that whole thing with Jamie's transgressions from past seasons. Let's take a quick break from this episode because I want to promote. Are you looking for a way to take your love of The Ray Taylor Show to the next level? Look no further than Inspire Disorder Plus. As a member, you'll get access to a whole host of amazing perks, including the full week of shows, ad-free in both audio and video versions, a live painting archive, early access to the many faces, members-only discounts and deals, a podcast back catalog with over 600 episodes. But that's not all. As a member, you'll get access to my personal blog as well as my creative writing. You'll also get the chance to ask me anything you want. With all of these benefits and more, Inspired Disorder Plus is a must-have for any fan of The Ray Taylor Show. So don't wait. Go sign up now. Head on over to inspireddisorder.com/plus and start enjoying all of the amazing perks of the membership. And now, let's get back to the show. Team is now back at home. Jamie stays at the locker room, right, because he's got to get his injury sorted out. Gives Colin, as Colin leaves, gives him respect for how he played, like Jamie really stepping up as the leader of the team, giving Colin respect. Ted wants to show Beard something as he's in the office on his laptop. Wants to show that video of Nate tearing up the sign, but it's not just that. It's what happened after that. The full context of the video. And how Nate, after tearing that sign up, had to hide under the desk because the team was coming in to celebrate their victory that they just had. And Nate had to hide under that desk while the team celebrated around him for hours. And finally, when the team left and Nate finally had the all clear to get out from under the desk, that's when the cleaning crew came in and he had to go back under the desk and hide again. And then he finally gets out and he's all sore, right? Only to find that the door is locked, right? Ted kind of laughing at the situation, but you see Beard just watching it. You see that, like, okay, he's showing me this for Beard to sympathize, right? He's getting him to sympathize with Nate. And it seems, right, it's all, you can almost see in Beard's eyes, he's reconsidering his position in regards to Nate coming back. And Ted says at the end of it that, I hope that either all of us or none of us are judged by the actions of our weakest moments, but rather by the strength we show when and if we're ever given a second chance. And Ted leaves Beard, and Beard lets out a Roy Kent style a great message, right? That was Nate's weakest moment. So do we judge Nate by his weakest moment, or do we judge him based on what potential he has, giving him a second chance? Or the strength we show when and if we ever get a second chance? And we find out that Nate is not the only one who potentially can get a second chance, that Ted is willing to give a second chance to. That there's a lot that, in many ways, a lot that Coach Beard has in common with Nate. But cut to Jamie in the medical room, icing his foot, sends a text to his dad, just seeing if he's okay. I haven't heard from him in a while. Keeley comes in with Roy to keep him company and to celebrate. They toss a bottle of champagne into the bucket of ice that, Jamie is icing his foot in. Ted walks by and sees the three of them just enjoying this moment. It's kind of like, it's emotional, right? Things are wrapping up. There's only one more episode left in the show, and they're wrapping a lot of things up and setting up for what is going to be this last episode. So you see the three of them who know each other better. They are a family in many ways, despite the fact not only that Roy and Keeley were acting as if they were the concerned parents of Jamie, but, they've seen Jamie grow so much over the past season, the past series. Cut to Nate going over a bunch of paperwork. When Jade gets home from the restaurant, she brings him some food from the restaurant, and he tells her that that he was fired, and that she kind of plays along like, oh, really? I didn't know you. That's crazy. Well, that manager is a bastard, right? And Nate tells her that he knows, even though there's only one game left in the season, he needs to go back to Richmond to make things right. And he wrote The paperwork he was going over is actually a 60-page apology letter for Ted. Because that's Nate. He's like so overboard in every way. And then someone is at the door. There's a ringing at the door at the apartment complex. Nate decides he's going to go out to get the door. As he opens the door, he's scared shitless to see Coach Beard on the other side of the glass door outside of the apartment complex. And he is frightened. Nate is frightened at what's going to happen. He hesitates to go open the door, predicting he's going to get killed. Right? This is where Coach Beard kills me. But he opens the door. Beard starts by saying that we get to hear the origin story of Beard and Ted. We get to know more of Beard's backstory, which is another emotional moment. Beard starts by saying that he met Ted playing college football. Beard was the backup punter, or Ted was the backup punter, and Beard was the backup kicker. They never got in any of the games, right? They rode the bench the whole time. But they spent a lot of time working out and training together. And after school, they went their separate ways. Ted got married, got into coaching, and Beard got himself into prison. When he got paroled, he had nothing and had nobody. Right? He looked up Ted, who took him in, no problem. He fed him. He let him crash on the couch. And in return, Coach Beard stole his car. And he would have gone back to prison if Ted didn't convince the cops that he gave him the car. And Nate points out the similarities to Les Mis, which I've never seen the movie, but, you know, I digress. So, to honor the life that Ted gave to Coach Beard is going to forgive Nate. And he offers him a job, but the life part is up to him. Nate absolutely looks shocked, thanks him, and you see a single tear run down the face of Coach Beard. Nate offers to let him headbutt him, right? It's probably make them both feel better. So Beard takes a deep breath, turns his little cap around, grabs Nate's head, and slowly presses his forehead against Nate's and tells him Monday at 10 a.m. And then gives him a big hug. And Nate hugs him back. And Jade takes a bite of her kebab as she's watching this all happen. And kind of for a job well done. Very emotional moment. Like finding out that Ted gave Coach Beard a massive second chance. And clearly knows that Nate deserves the same. So, here we are. Nate's back, baby. I knew it! Redemption story. Cut to Ted getting home. His mom made meatloaf and lasagna. She didn't know what he'd want, so she made both. And he asked what's wrong. Why did she show up? And she says she just wanted to see if everything's okay. And he says, fuck you for not wanting to talk. Thank you for flying out to see him, but also fuck you for not telling me that you were coming. Thanking her for the little things that she did for him growing up, but fuck you for not seeking help after they lost their dad. He lost his dad. She lost her husband. For not talking to him about it and just pretending everything was okay. And he hates that she made him feel that he had to pretend like everything was okay. And she tells Ted that his son misses him. And he knows. And he starts crying. And he tells her that he gets scared to get close to him because he knows that he's just going to leave. Right? The son's going to leave. He's got to leave. And she tells him sometimes you lose and sometimes you win, but most of the time you just tie, which is a concept that Ted is like obviously learning in this whole thing. It's the first thing he learned about soccer, the tie. And how, when they first got their first tie, how that was a victory in and of itself. And she ends with a fuck you to make him laugh and apologize. And he decides to serve her dinner for a change. So, cut to this moment that feels the most out of place for this episode, but is going to set up for something in the final episode, clearly. Bex and Rupert's former assistant show up at Rebecca's house. Right? Rebecca's at home, gets a doorbell. She goes to answer it, and it's Bex. And then she opens up the door even more and sees that. So now it's all three of the women who have been wronged by Rupert they need Rebecca's advice. So maybe Rupert's gonna see his maybe no, I don't know. I'm not gonna go there. But definitely it seems like Rupert's gonna have some comeuppance in the last episode, which would be great. So, and it's the one moment in this entire episode that feels out of place. It's literally just a small moment that happens at the end. Like, none of that was set up earlier. So, but still interesting to see where that goes in the final episode. Cut to Ted asleep on the couch. And in the foreground, you see, it's the next morning, and you see Henry's Lego Stadium, the prophecy of Henry Stadium. His mom's gone. She left a note along with some sunflower bread that sounds delicious. That's his favorite. And she thanks him for the lovely time that she had. Ted shows up to work with Rebecca in his office. She's staring at the triangle of success or whatever. She likes it. She wants to, whatever. And it's that time of year where she drops bombshells on Ted, as she has in the previous seasons. And he's stoked. He's like, sweet, let's bring it. What's your big bombshell? And she doesn't have anything this year. Everything's kind of working out for her. And it seems like she's going to help with these other women with their situation. So there's no truth bomb. But Ted has one for her. And that's where the episode ends. Obviously, I think he's going to say that he's going to go home. That he's done with the team after this season. I mean, it makes the most sense. Nate's going to take over as head coach. Maybe Beard stays. Roy stays. All of those things come to fruition. So that's what I think is going to happen in the next episode. I don't know if we'll see him tell her that, but maybe we will. Maybe that's how it'll start, with him dropping that bomb on her. But it seems obvious at this point. It's the whole season. The season started with him barely being there mentally. That he wants to be back home. He wants to be with his family. He wants to be with his kid. There's still a connection with him and his wife, ex-wife. So I think he's going to tell her that he's going to leave. Nate will be back for the last game. He's probably going to take over Ted's place when he leaves. I think Keely and Roy are going to be back together. It just makes sense. Maybe they won't, but I think it will. And maybe get married. Maybe they even take it to that next step, as they kind of showed to be the parents for Jamie in this season, this episode, trying to figure out what was wrong with him. Jade, instrumental at getting Nate to go back to Richmond, as I thought she would be. We got to know Beard's backstory, which was great, and the powerful moment between him and Nate. Great moment, which, because they have that in common, both given a second chance from Ted, I can see him staying to be the assistant coach with Nate. I can see that happening. Richmond still playing great. Jamie, obviously, he's got a sprained ankle. He'll probably be fine. I can't see that injury making a thing. Van Dam playing at the top of his game, saving so many goals. You got Colin playing the best he's ever played. You got Sam rising to all of the players kind of rising to the occasion as they get close to the end. The scene where Beck and Rupert's former assistant show up at Rebecca's house felt the most out of place in this episode, as I said, but definitely makes me think there's going to be major, maybe legal issues for Rupert in the next episode. There's going to be something big happening to Rupert, and it's not going to be good for him, I think. And I think Rebecca's, maybe she's going to get West Ham. Maybe. Right? And then she'll take on West Ham, and then she'll give Keeley Richmond. I don't know. But that's where I think it's going. There's something big going with Rupert. I don't know what will happen with West Ham or whatever, but I think Rupert's in some big trouble. Everything seems all set up for Richmond to win, for Ted to go back to his son. Everyone will have been changed by Ted and his positivity, as we have seen throughout these 3 seasons. Everybody has only gotten better by being around Ted. I expect to be crying a lot in the next episode. Hopefully not when I'm recording the recap, but I'm sure while watching this. I truly do love this show so much. I'm excited to rewatch the show, right? Just so many times in the future I'm going to rewatch the show because it's just such a positive show. It reminds me a lot of the show Parks and Rec, which is a very positive show as well. I think this one's a little bit more refined, and because there's so many seasons of Parks and Rec, but still similar vibes. They both are about positive people trying to do good things. So I'm looking forward to this show being a show that I put on in the future just to feel better, because I need that. It's my part of my self-medication is to watch things that make me feel better. Right? It's one of the best feel-good shows, I would say, of all time. But it's not yet over. One more episode. Season 3, episode 12. So long, farewell. Alvitersen adieu. You can be curious to see if there's a Sound of Music reference, considering the title potentially is a reference to that song. But it is the season finale. It is the series finale. Assuming he said they're done after 3. I can see spin-off clearly change the name of the show from Ted Lasso to Nathan Shelley. Richmond, AFC Richmond. Greyhounds. Whatever. I can see the show continuing as a spin-off. I don't know how good it would be without Ted, but I do love these characters. I love where this last episode is going to be. And in this last episode, that is the season finale, AFC Richmond play their final match of the season. I think they will be crowned as kings and lords. They will be the new monarchy. Ted will not be able to leave because he will be crowned as the new king of England, and he will reign over that country. They will eliminate their parliamentary system. It will be a monarchy once again. But since Ted is the king, it will be a utopia. It'll be like a futuristic, kind of like how Parks and Rec got into sci-fi at the very end. This is what Ted Lasso is going to be. I really don't think that's going to be it, but I am looking forward to the last episode. But that is a wrap on another incredible episode of the Ted Lasso Recap Podcast. Y'all have been tuning in, and I couldn't be more grateful. If you're loving what I'm doing here, please consider subscribing and leaving a review. I want to make sure I'm hitting the bullseye every time I step up to the mic. Now, I know y'all have opinions, and I want to hear them. Reach out on social media at Ray Taylor Show on IG, TikTok, and Twitter, and let me know what y'all thinking. I promise to read every message with the same enthusiasm that Ted coaches his team to victory. And finally, I can't wait to get back with y'all next week for one more deep dive into the world of Ted Lasso. One more, people. Until then, stay curious, stay kind, and stay gold, folks.
New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on YouTube and everywhere our podcasts are found. Binge the full week over at inspireddisorder.com/plus. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!
Today is the day where you wake up and you realize that everything that you've been dreaming about, everything that you've been wanting, every goal and wish and hope that you've ever had can become real. Dreams can come true. What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.